Hi, friends. We at GLC would like to take a quick moment to thank you for watching our programs on this platform, and we'd like to ask you for a little favor. Would you please go beneath this video and click the subscribe button? Did you know that by simply subscribing to the GLC YouTube channel, you can help us financially support the programs on this platform? You'll need to be signed into YouTube beforehand. But if not, simply click the subscribe button and YouTube will automatically walk you through the steps to sign in or to create an account. By taking these simple steps, you will not only ensure that you continue to receive our unique programming and gain instant access to the hundreds of videos we post, but more importantly, you'll also be telling YouTube that GLC's content is worth watching and promoting. Likewise, if you enjoyed a specific program, please click the thumbs up button below, which also helps inform YouTube that this is a program worth recommending. Finally, once you have logged in and subscribed, please click the notification bell below in order to receive announcements when we post new content. As usual, feel free to post your questions and comments in the comments section below. We always love hearing from our friends and viewers. Again, thank you for watching and supporting God's Learning Channel. We couldn't spread the message of the gospel without you. Be blessed, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, welcome to Light of the Southwest, right here on the set at GLC. Got a special treat for you. You know, in 2012, Gerard Butler starred in a movie called Machine Gun Preacher, about a rough man who had a radical conversion, ended up saving thousands of lives of orphans in Sudan from the Islamist rebels. Well, the man behind the movie and his story is even more interesting and incredible. It's none other than the Machine Gun Preacher, Sam Childers. How you doing, Sam?
Praise God. Good to be here, man. Yeah.
It's good to see you, Sam.
But it's a little bit too cold for me. I leave back to Africa next week, and people say, "Don't you miss America?" And listen, America is the greatest country in the world. No, I don't miss it. I love Africa. You know, that's my home. That's where my children are, and my wife as well. So Africa is where my home is.
Well, you're doing incredible work, Sam. You know, I had the honor to interview you before for Word on the Street. And of course, Light of the Southwest is the flagship show for GLC. But you know what? You've had 2 documentaries since that movie illustrating what you can't fathom, folks, what all that he does. You know, and even on this jaunt, we've been doing 5 days of meetings and events. You're a very busy man. You are still leading an incredible operation every day, all day. And it's an amazing work.
You can go to machinegunpreacher.org. There's a store on there. So my first 2 books are available on there. Another Man's War, Living on the Edge. My 3rd book comes out next week. Proof copies come out next week, so we'll read them. And then probably by Christmas time, the 3rd book, The Most Unlikely, will be coming out. And it's a really good book. I believe it's going to do well because I believe when you read the 3rd book, it's not about Sam Childers. It's about you, and it's about what you can do in other people's lives. And I believe give them a chance. Even if they're broke and you want to see them get back on their feet again financially, give them a chance. So my 3rd book is about using your life as an opportunity for other people's lives.
Well, and to say that you've done that is an understatement.
Yeah.
You left great business and great finances to obey God's voice.
God gave it all back tenfold.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, I can remember when God called me to the mission field, I did not want to go. I mean, I was a businessman. I was just getting my life straightened out. I was just starting to make money. I was building my construction company. Go to Africa. And a lot of people say that the enemy, Satan, the devil, all he wants to do is kill, steal, and destroy. That's not true. He can help you to live in prosperity if it's to keep you away from Christ, and especially away from what God wants to do in your life. So, what happened to me, I had a small real estate company. When I had my calling to go to Africa and I didn't want to go to Africa, I feel the enemy was helping me to buy houses, sell houses. I'm flipping houses constantly. I ended up building a net worth of 17 houses, 8 stores.
Wow.
And I mean, I had money rolling in. I had a construction company. My life was booming, but I wasn't happy. And finally, I said, I'll go on a mission trip. Went on that first mission trip, got into the middle of a war. And something that I tell people all the time is God will open a door for you. And if you remember anything I say today, I say this all the time, especially when I'm preaching. God will open a door for you. And at that moment, the decision you make will determine your destination in life.
Well, I tell you what, that's quite a destination that you're at. Let's go back. Let's go back to your story. Because, oh man, it's even better than the movie, folks. Tell us your story, brother.
A lot of times when you hear the story of Sam Childers, most people will say, what kind of parents did he have? Because most kids that get into trouble, most kids that was trouble, most kids that was into alcohol, drugs, and just a bad person was raised in a messed up family. I was raised in the perfect family. I had every opportunity in my family. They were middle class, both mom and dad born again. I love to describe my mom. She came out of the womb speaking in tongues. My mom only sinned 3 times in her whole life when she gave birth to me and my 2 brothers. My dad was a Marine. My dad was a tough guy, hard guy. He believed if you don't work, then you shouldn't eat, But I was raised in a Christian family. When I was 3 years old, if you was to ask me, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'd have told you I'm going to be a preacher.
Wow.
All the way up to 10 years old, I'm going to be a preacher. I was spirit-filled at 10 years old. I was spirit-filled at 8 years old. But at 11 years old, I started watching kids in my school where I went to school, and I was watching the older kids, and I just wanted to fit in. And I believe that most people today that's listening to this, no matter what your age is, whether you're young, middle-aged, old age, elderly like me now, we all want to fit in. And why we like to fit in is when we fit into a group of people, we feel loved. And no matter who we are in the world, no matter how mean, how bad we are in the world, we want to feel loved. So I started doing what the older kids was doing at 11 years old. I started smoking cigarettes, marijuana, and it went from it to pills and drinking. And by the time I was 15 years old, I'm putting a needle in my arm, shooting up cocaine, heroin, speedballs, fireballs, and moved out of my home at 15 years old and started living the life of a drug dealer, biker, and I was a bad guy, criminal. Yeah.
Well, and you weren't just a bad guy and a criminal. You were one of the top drug dealers.
Yeah, I was probably in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. At one time, I was the main drug dealer. What made me so good at it was I was young. Yeah. So all the older guys knew me, all the older bikers knew me, all the older partiers knew me. So people that was like 30, 35 years old, all the way down to 14, 15 years old. And people say, what? That young? You got to remember, I was that young. I started doing drugs, putting a needle in my arm at 15 years old. So I was selling a little bit of drugs at that age, but 16 and 17 years old, selling a lot of drugs. Before I became 20 years old, I was a major drug dealer and then started running drugs from Grand Rapids to Minneapolis. And then I found out good money in running drugs, and I started running them Minneapolis to Chicago, Chicago to Orlando, Florida, And what's so crazy about my whole life, I always knew Jesus Christ was real. Even when I was an addict, even when I was at my worst, my lowest, I always knew Jesus Christ was real, never doubted his existence. I just thought I don't need him. You know, I had everything I thought I needed. I had money, I had drugs, I had women, guns, motorcycles, everything I thought life was all about. I thought I was living the dream until I really found out what living the dream is, you know.
Well, there came an impasse in your life one night.
Yeah.
Where all the points converged and you had your epiphany.
You know, I was living in Longwood, right outside of Orlando, Florida. And I went out to an ABC liquor lounge. And your bar rooms in Florida, they still have a lot of the ABC liquor lounge. But I went out to one and a bar fight broke out. And it was probably the worst bar fight I was in my entire life. And I'll never forget that night. I was in the back of the bar. There was only one way out, and it was the front door. And I made up my mind, if I make it to that door, I'm done living this life. And a lot of Christians, when I share my testimony, they say, oh, that's when he gave his life to the Lord. And it wasn't. That was when I made up my mind, you know. And I speak in a lot of rehabs around the world. I've spoken the biggest rehabs in the United States. And I believe that the church tells people with addictions the wrong way. We want to tell people with addictions that you need to come to the church, come to the altar. Jesus can take it from you. You got to remember, he could, but Jesus don't work like that. He's a God of freedom. He wants you to make up your mind. When you make up your mind and you accept him as your personal savior, he'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. But we got to stop treating him like he's a genie in a bottle, that every time there's a problem, we rub that bottle, he pops out, and he fixes the problem. He could do that, but that's not how he works. But I guarantee you that anyone listening right now, if you have an addiction, you can make up your mind. You can kick it. You can stop it. It's going to be hard. Listen, I know how hard. You know, a lot of people with addictions, when you talk to them, they say, you don't understand. You got to remember, I was the guy with the drugs. I was the guy that was selling, you know, back in those days, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 worth of drugs. I know how hard it is, but I know men and women out there right now that's listening, if you make up your mind, you can do it. So that night in that bar room, I said, if I make it to that door, I'm done living this life. I went home. I told my wife at the time, she was a stripper. I mean, I was living that crazy lifestyle of a criminal. And I walked in the house and she said, what happened to you? Because I was beat up a little bit. And I told her, I said, we're moving. And she started to cry instantly because she knew I was walking away from that life. Because, you know, sometimes when you're in it so deep, the only way out is to leave all those friends, leave all those relatives. I rode with a club back then. I had to leave everybody. People actually thought, I met people 12, 15 years after I left Orlando, Florida. They thought somebody killed me because when I left, I cut all ties. And, you know, for people with addictions, they say there's a 5-year grace. You cannot help your friends till you're first delivered for 5 years. But it took me 10. And a lot of people with addictions, you know, when we get clean, we're clean 6 months, we're clean 1 year. The first thing we want to do is go back and help our friends and save our friends, our relatives, you know. But that's how we fall back into it. It takes at least 5 years of being clean before you can help anyone. For me, it took 10 years.
Well, you developed a passion for ministry because after quite a bit of convincing, you finally decided to go to church.
It took 2 years. When I moved back to my hometown, Central City, Pennsylvania, my wife starts going to church, and she's going to church with my mom. And it wasn't just going to church. You know, the average Christian goes to church.
Right.
But I mean, they're not really serving God. So my wife starts going to church, serving God. I mean, she's going with my mom Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday, midweek services. They're having prayer meetings at my house. I mean, they're on full throttle, you know. And for 2 years, my wife, all she would do is ask me every week, will you go to church? Will you go to church? Keep in mind, I still knew that Jesus Christ was real. I never doubted his existence, but my mind was so brainwashed. I could make money. I was a hard worker. God gave me the ability to run businesses. So in my mind, I was so brainwashed that I just thought, I don't need Jesus. I'm getting along without him. And one day, I always make it a joke that if you have a nagging wife, you can shut them up. Just do what they want. Do what they want you to do, and then shut up.
Just do it, man.
She nagged me for 2 years to go to church. And
2 years.
2 years. And finally I said, okay. And I went to church. But that Sunday morning, I'll never forget, even as I was getting dressed, my hands was trembling. Driving to church, my cheeks were trembling. And walking into the church, my knees was trembling because I knew it was my day. Before I walked in, before I said, here I am, God, before I said, forgive me, Lord, before I said, use me, Lord, I knew it was my day. I knew that was the day that I was going to accept Jesus Christ as my personal Savior.
You know, I love when guests look into the camera and they minister the way you do.
Yeah.
You know, I remember a time I was traveling 3 o'clock in the morning. I needed an encouraging word.
Yeah.
I turned on the television and GLC was on. And, you know, it means the difference, but you have an amazing story. You've spoken such huge churches, and yet the heart of your ministry, my gosh.
We still do churches from 10 people to 10,000.
Yeah.
We do or churches and meetings from 20 people to 20,000. And years ago, I had one of the booking agents for the legend Billy Graham started working for me. And he was booking me just all in big churches, big amount of money. And finally, God spoke to me and said that, why am I cutting out so many people from hearing my message? And I believe the message that I carry is a message of hope. Because when you really look at who Sam Childers was, there's no excuse why God wouldn't use you. And I'm non-educated. I don't even have a 9th grade education. I couldn't read or write at 14 years old. I could probably read maybe a 2nd or 3rd grade book, you know. But I mean, I was the most likely never to succeed in life, you know. And a drug addict. I accomplished nothing in my life besides making money off of drugs. That's why I have so many people when I preach around the world. I've done 17 world tours. People will come up to me and they'll say, well, God can't use me because you don't know what I have done. You know, I wrote 3 books. There's been movies done, documentaries done of my life. So most people know most things about my life. I still hit a few things. But if God can use me, he can definitely use you.
Amen. And use you, he has and does.
Yeah.
I've watched you and there are no little people in the kingdom, folks. You're very significant. Your life's already been written. God knew you would be born. He loves you. And he has plans for you. Oh my gosh, 40 years of ministry and Bible college, and I never heard what you said about the scripture in Jeremiah that we often get wrong.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. Jeremiah 29, verse 11. It's one of my favorite scriptures. And this whole year, 2025, I either opened up with that scripture. I'd done my 17th world tour around the world. Every meeting either used that scripture in the middle of the meeting, opened the meeting, or closed the meeting. And, you know, so many Christians, this is what we say: I know God has a plan for me. God doesn't have a plan for you. God has plans for you.
Plural.
There's an S on there. And here it is. It's not two things. It's not three things. It's not four things. It's many things. And remember this: God will not give you any more than you can handle. If you're a person that's not very good at taking care of what God puts in your hands, work on that. Don't work on anything else till you work on taking care of what you have, because God's going to multiply it and he's going to keep adding. And the biggest thing is, you search your heart. You know, there's so many times we'll cry out in prayer, God, search my heart. I'm telling you right now, you search your heart. What is really in your heart? If you become a rich man, if you become a rich lady, what's going to be your number one thing to do? And I guarantee you, there's a lot of ways to success, okay? A lot of ways to success. But my success all came through Jesus Christ, because he knows if he puts $500,000 in my hand, if he puts $1 million in my hand, I'm going to work on building schools. I'm going to work on doing feeding programs.
It's good soil.
Build another orphanage, right? You know, so when God knows that, and people will think they try to hide things from God, you got to remember, he would answer people's thoughts. So he knows what you're thinking. He knows exactly what you're going to do if he puts $1 million in your hands. So that's why I tell people, you search your heart, work yourself out. And then when you start serving God and you say, God, here I am, he'll lay it on you.
Well, little did you know that time you went to church, what you would be doing.
Yeah, it was a new beginning. I mean, the first night I gave my life to the Lord, I couldn't stand up. I couldn't walk to the altar. I couldn't even lift my hand. But the preacher come walking back to me, and I always describe this. Preachers used to be preachers 30, 40 years ago. They weren't out to embarrass you. Now, maybe some preachers would, but this preacher didn't try to embarrass me. He walked to the back of the church, and he laid hands on me. He didn't try to drag me to the altar. He laid hands on me, and he prayed with me, and I accepted Jesus Christ in the back of that church. And even after I accepted Jesus Christ, he didn't try to drag me to the altar. He just left me hanging. And it was like I got a taste of Jesus, but I wanted more. You know, think of the best food that you like. Now, I like eating sushi, okay? So did you ever go to a sushi bar? If you're a sushi lover, say you're a steak lover, okay? Did you ever go to that type of restaurant or sushi bar and eat one piece?
Nope.
So you want more, you know? So I got a taste of Jesus that night, and I went back the next night. They were having another service, and I sat right in the front row because I knew what I needed was at that altar. And when he gave that altar call, I jumped right up. I was the first one there, and when he started praying, I was thinking, come on, God, lay it on. And then all of a sudden he stops and he starts to prophesy. And the more he prophesied, the more angry I got. Because, you know, keep in mind, in 1990 is when I was in that bar fight, and I started focusing on changing my life, making money, and straightening my life out. And so within 2 years, my life was stable. I'm making money. I have several rental houses, and all of a sudden, this preacher's prophesying over me that I'm to be a missionary, that I'm to go to Africa. And I'm thinking, I ain't going to Africa. I'm a white man. Why would I go to Africa? And then he started telling me I'm going to be in a war. And I'm thinking, I'm already married. I'm not getting another war.
That's great.
And so finally, I went home that night, and I'll never forget, I cried all night long because I knew the man of God spoke the truth. You know, people that's listening right now, God may have had someone prophesy into your life. And you know when it's real, you know when it's fake, and when it's real, it sticks with you. And I mean, I went for years, and I started putting money into Africa. Every time I would hear of an African ministry, I'm sowing $500, $1,000. In 1996, I'll never forget, I wrote out a check. Now, this is a lot of money now. If you're listening and you don't think it is a lot of money, I suspect you to send it to my office. But I wrote out a check because I was a businessman. And for several years, the business was booming, everything. I wrote out a check for $20,000. And, you know, when we do something like that, we want to remind God of it. So I went home that night. I stood on the veranda, and I'll never forget, I was reminding God, God, did you see what I just did? God, did you see that check? And, you know, I tell people all the time, if you're not hearing from God, you probably don't want to hear from him. Because when you really start hearing from God, it's not about your plan anymore. Right. And I heard from him, and he said, I don't need your money. I need you. Yeah. And so there again, I went in the house. I cried all night long again, and because I knew I was to walk away from everything. So I started thinking for hours and hours, how can I trick God? How can I fool God? So I started thinking, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on a mission trip. Yeah. The average missionary, what they want to call a missionary, you know, if you go on 1 or 2 mission trips a year now, they call themselves. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like well, the average mission trip is only 2 weeks to 3 weeks. So I started thinking, I'm going to do it the best. I'm going on a 5-week mission trip. So I went on a 5-week mission trip into South Sudan. And when I get in there, I hear these soldiers talking about war. And, you know, this is when I always tell this story. God will open a door. When you stand in that doorway, the decision you make will determine your destination in life. And I'll never forget, when I heard that story, I told these soldiers, I got to go see it. They said the whole village was murdered and killed, and horrible things happened. The ground was stained with blood, and I got to see it. So we went there, and it was probably one of the worst things I've seen in my life. So the one soldier said, we got to look for children. They could be hiding in the bush. They could be hiding in these mud huts. And I said, okay. And as we started looking, I come across the body of a small child that stepped on a landmine. And from the waist down was gone. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl, but I couldn't understand, how can we hear of this in the world and we do nothing? I mean, we hear of everything else in the world, but you know what I ask people right now, do you know what's going on in East Africa? You know, Darfur and Sudan and South Sudan basically years ago was all one region, and they're in their 3rd genocide right now. September and October, we had satellites watching in Darfur, and a village where they went in and slaughtered people, and they adjusted the satellites and found mass graves, and it wasn't a few people in them. They knew it was hundreds, but it turned out to be thousands. And one village, they murdered over 1,500 people in one day, you know. So we're in their 3rd genocide. Do you realize that, you know? And what's happening in East Africa right now, you got to watch what you Google, which statistics you want to hold on to. But we're talking 70-some million people on the verge of starvation by mid-2026. And 70 million people, and most of them being children. And do you know about it? And, you know, sometimes, to be honest with you, I tell people a lot of times when I preach, maybe before I start speaking, you should just go home. Because, you know, when we become aware of what's going on in the world, then we become responsible, because we can all do something. And so I knew at that moment, when I seen that child, I had to do something. So 3 months later, I was back in Africa, starting the first orphanage. Yeah.
You know, in the movie, there's an explosion and you find a child. And the reality of that is even more horrific, though.
Yeah. Well, in the movie Machine Gun Preacher, it shows me looking for these children in a village, and then I heard a landmine go off, and when I went running to that sound, and I got there, I found the child. It didn't happen like that. The child was dead a few hours before I got into that village, but it was the same result when I looked at that child and stood over that child. And I remember looking up in the air and I said, God, I'll do whatever it takes. At that moment, Sam Childers had a construction company that done a couple million a year. I had 17 houses. I had 8 storefronts. So I had a real estate company that brought in a lot of money. Sam Childers had all the man toys. I had the camper trailer, the 4-wheeler, the fishing boat, had a gun collection. At that point in my life, because I was a businessman, I was going hunting. I'd go to Colorado every year hunting elk. I'd go to South Carolina hunting turkey. I mean, I was hunting deer in Pennsylvania. I mean, I was probably spending $10,000 to $15,000 a year just on hunting trips. But at that moment, everything changed. And I'm not by no means telling anyone out there that you shouldn't enjoy life, because I do now. I mean, God has blessed me once again. But like I told you earlier, I don't go sightseeing. I don't go off on vacations. If I go on vacation, I'll spend it at one of my orphanages. So I don't do none of that stuff. You know, Africa's my life. My children is what I do, you know, and I leave here. I leave the U.S. next week. I'll be back in Africa for Christmas, and people say, Sam, don't you miss Christmas in America? No, I don't. You know, I spend my Christmas every year at a different orphanage, a different project. And it's in Africa. It's with my children, you know. It's with little children that don't have anyone to hold them, love on them, but me and my wife, you know. And the thing is, you can have somebody hug you, but to really be a child that's a true orphan and lost their parents in war, you know, they know what real love is. And when my wife holds them or I hold them, they know we are their dad, you know, their mother, you know.
Well, when you go over to a third world country and you see the reality.
Yeah.
You know, when we went to Egypt, to Garbage City.
Yeah.
Where the unspeakable happens when you come to Jesus. And over here at Range, you don't go to church, but over there, you know, they drink the black water, they eat the trash, they wear the trash. A part of you never comes back. Yeah. Part of me never came back from Africa. You know exactly what that's like. Yeah. And your heart is still there. But you know, you know, there's ministry. Oh, I think I'll start a little ministry for blah, blah, blah. And then there are ministries that are good soil. This is a ministry and an operation that is good soil. Yet you have positioned yourself to not only come from a place of strength where it takes a lot of money, 50 grand a month. Well, to operate all this.
To operate the children's homes, the orphanages, the sponsorships, just the normal stuff that we do runs us about $50,000 a month. Yeah. But that's not including over and beyond what we do. Right. Like some of the projects, like we have a commercial farm in northern Uganda. Well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I believe, and I believe God showed me, if you want to change a nation, it's Jesus Christ first. Right. But if you're going to go into most third world countries, they already know of Jesus Christ. They can teach us how to pray, you know.
Yeah.
But I believe if you want to change that nation, it's through education. Over the years, our organization, we've built 7 schools from the footer up. Right now, we're building number 8th school. But I believe that there's even more than that. If you really want to change a nation, the third thing is teaching a skill and a trade. So we bought a commercial farm, and that farm started out about 200 acres. And like I say all the time, you know, God will not give you any more than you can handle. So if you have problems taking care of things, work on doing that first before you seek for more, you know. So the farm now is over 1,200 acres. And just when it started to make money and we're making money, we're filling our storehouse, God says, I want you to give your main crop away. And I'm like, God, come on. We just started making money. We're filling our storehouse. So just to tell you how big this thing got, last year, we gave away over 80 ton of rice and over 25 ton of maize flour after we filled our own storehouse. So this year, this was just like a week or two ago, my wife calls me. She's in the bush. She's at the farm. They're doing the harvest. And I knew they were harvesting. The harvester was there. And all of a sudden, she calls me and she says, Sam, we got a problem. And right away, I started to get worked up. I said, honey, what's wrong? You know, and she said, well, the harvest is bigger than last year. And I'm thinking, that's not really a problem. But she said, we don't have nowhere to put it, you know, and that is a problem, you know. So that's a pretty big problem, but it's a good problem. So the harvest this year for the giveaway, we always try to do the giveaway around Christmas, will be larger than last year. But the farm is not only feeding thousands of people with 3 to 4 months ration of food, it's creating jobs. Peak season, we're over 150 people on that one project.
You're putting people to work. It's a matter of what, 700?
Come on, man. Yeah, well, we have about 730 people on a payroll.
But when you do that for just one, what happens?
Yeah, well, you know, if you can create a full-time job in in America, you give a young person a full-time job. They get designer jeans, they get new shoes, maybe a stereo in their car, which is all okay. Okay, believe me, it's okay. But in Africa, it's not like that. You give a young person a job. Mm-hmm. They're going to pay school fees on their brother, their sister. Yeah. They're going to take care of their grandma, their grandma.
You're changing the bloodline.
You got to remember, in Africa, there is no welfare system.
Right.
There is no soup kitchen in most third world countries. There's not a soup kitchen unless it's a church ministry feeding people. And they don't have SNAP benefits or people to take care of them. You know, the only hope that the people in East Africa has is us. And, you know, I believe that you just shouldn't hand fish out to people. I believe we should teach them how to fish. So the jobs that we create, and we have from hotels to supermarket, fuel station, it's about teaching young people a skill and a trade. So when we hire someone on, we don't want that person to come to work for us for the rest of their life. Our goal is to work someone 2 to 3 years, they're on a payroll, but then for them to get a better job. And what's so awesome, like, I remember we built this big, fine, beautiful 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom house on the farm. And a lot of people said, I can't believe Sam just wants a big fancy house way out in the bush for himself. But what that house was for mission teams, but it's for teaching young ladies how to work in a hotel. And you know, this is what I challenge people that's listening right now. It seems like in the mission field, in the churches, we have a lot of projects for little children, and we have projects for men, but you don't hear of too many projects or programs for young ladies.
Right.
Let me tell you about young ladies that are victims of war, where they were used by the rebels, sex slaves, whatnot. when they escape or they leave that war, they get out of that war, and they was a makeshift wife for the rebels. When they go back to their home village, they don't want them there. They believe that they come with bad spirits. They believe they're possessed. And a lot of these women, they have no education. Their families don't want them. Their friends don't want them. They'll literally just go out into the bush. They have no working experience or education, and they'll set to die. So what this farmhouse did is we taught young people, young ladies, how to make Spanish omelets, how to make eggs Benedict, how to make pancakes and French toast. This one girl, I love to tell this story of this girl, and her name was Mercy. This young girl's name was Mercy, and for 2 years, she worked at the farmhouse. And every time, I love to cook, every time I'm in the kitchen cooking, she was right there. She wanted to learn how to cut up the vegetables. She wanted to learn how to cook the vegetables, how to make everything, and especially the stuff for breakfast. This young girl named Mercy went into Gulu, Uganda, and opened up a little tiny kitchen. I mean, a little kitchen. She was so busy. She only had an area for maybe 15 people to sit under a little roof. But she was so busy, people would wait in lines, and all she cooked was breakfast and lunch. And I mean, then she ended up meeting her husband, and she moved away from Gulu to the other side of Uganda. She has another restaurant now. But this is what this house has done. Other women that learned how to make beds, wash clothes properly, how to clean a house properly. They got jobs in 3-star, 4-star hotels, even in other countries, So it works, teaching a skill and a trade.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that even the best orphanages, they age out. 14.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
What happens to them? Guess what happens, folks?
Most third world countries, if you're in an orphanage, you have to leave at 14 years old. If you might make it to 15. But when you research it, 70% of those children will end up dying. They end up dying of violent crimes because they're forced into prostitution. They end up dying of disease. They end up dying of AIDS. So when God moved on us, he moved on us that we had to do something different. Now, our orphanage, at 18 years old, you are warned that you have to leave soon. At 19 years old, you have to leave. If you are what we call a poster child, you have the opportunity to go to trade school. Like right now, I have one young boy that's in trade school to be a chef. After 6 months, he can do an internship. He'll come to my restaurant, do an internship. Then we send him back in 6 months. So he'll have 1 year of culinary school behind him. Wow. We have another young boy that he's in a school now to be a mechanic. So after 6 months, he'll come to my auto shop and tire shop, welding shop. He'll work there for 6 months, wow, getting paid. Then he goes back to his school again. So he'll get a 1-year degree. Now, we have had another young girl that went to school for a few years, and she graduated with a master's. And I got to tell you this here. This is so crazy and so awesome. We had a young girl, and I know people out there listening, maybe you had a kid that just spent year after year in university, and all you're putting out is money, and you're wondering, what in the world is this child going to be? Well, this young girl was going for computer and all kinds of stuff. Well, anyway, she's the secretary, one of the main secretaries for the president of South Sudan. So educating children, people will say, I want to change a nation. Remember, it takes doctors, it takes nurses, it takes teachers, not just hardworking young people. So to get doctors and nurses and teachers, you have to send these children to university. So, the people out there that's listening today, I want you to, I'm not saying look at our ministry and do it like us. I'm saying look at our ministry and do it better than us.
Wow.
So we not only rescue children of war, we not only educate the children, we not only teach them a skill and a trade, but we will send them off to be professional people in the world.
I've never heard of a ministry doing all that.
God's
Never.
good.
And that's why this whole time at the bottom of your screen, right now, you can go to machinegunpreacher.org. You can make other connection points at the bottom of your screen. But this is good soil. You know, Jesus said, we'll always have the poor and hungry among us.
Come on.
And perfect religion according to the word, what? Feeding widows and orphans, taking care of widows and orphans.
Yeah.
But you're changing bloodlines, and you're starting to change a region of a country, and you're coming also from a place of strength. Folks, I don't do this often. If you know me, I say what I mean what I say. But I'm very moved by Sam and this incredible ministry. So right now, I can't wait to get involved. But this is good soil, okay? It's good soil. And no, if you can't come to Africa, then do it through this ministry with the time that we have left. But again, it's easy to just, I don't want to be negative here, but if you want to go to Africa and you want to gather a big crowd around you for the cameras, the same crowd that's paid every time to come in and get saved every rally or every crusade, you can do that. However, God bless the people who go to Africa, but Sam lives there. Sam is there. And not only with schools and orphanages, but businesses that are putting people to work, especially, most of you didn't know that these orphanages, they age out at 14. What happens to them? Sex trafficking and worse. So this really is the first time that I've heard of a ministry that, and I'm not negating other ministries. Sam, you've ran with some of the biggest names who have legitimately ministered to Africa, like Reinhard Bonnke, as well. But
Reinhard Bonnke was an unbelievable guy, and I'll never forget. I done some personal security for him, and when I was at a big crusade with him in Juba, when I first heard him preaching, it sounded like he was preaching to children. And then I started thinking, well, the message is easy enough for a child to understand it. But miracles happen. This man was so anointed. But I believe right now that there's people out there that God has given them visions and God has spoke to them. But us as Americans, this is what usually happens to us. God will give us a vision, and we get all excited, and we begin to tell our family, we begin to tell our friends, and we focus on God speaking to us, but we don't focus on the part of you trusting in him to step out and begin it. And usually they'll say this: God gave me a vision. And then about 30 minutes later, they'll say, and as soon as God gives me the money, I'm going to step out. You got to remember, if God gave you a vision, take every resource you have. Because when God sees you're serious with his vision, he gets serious with you.
Wow.
Now, we were talking about giving food away earlier, but I love to talk about our feeding program.
Okay.
Our feeding program started about 19 years ago. It started with 21 children. And I'll never forget, I almost didn't do it because I was so scared. When God speaks to us and we got to step out and do something, right away fear comes over us because we don't want people to look at us like a failure. So I almost didn't start it. But I started that feeding program. It's never shut down. In 19 years, never stopped, even during COVID, never stopped, slowed up a little bit, but we never stopped that feeding program. And it's well over 10,000 meals a day.
A day.
A day.
10,000 meals a day.
Meals a day. So I just want to encourage everyone. I mean, we're big into drilling wells. We've been drilling wells for the past 15, 16 years. Last year, our goal was to drill one well every month.
Yeah.
Last year we drilled 15. This year we've drilled 7. But right now, as I speak, my wife is finishing up 2. So that'd be 9 wells. And we still got a few weeks before the first of the year. Our goal is to do 3 more before the first of the year and hit that goal of 12, But it's just amazing what God has done. But you know what? You got to step out.
Yeah.
And people that's listening, I'm telling you, the dreams, the visions that you got to step out for them. If you're just going to wait till the money comes, everything we talked about, the big orphanage in South Sudan, you can go to Facebook. Now, we have 4 Facebook sites. We have Samuel Childers, Sam Childers, Machine Gun Preacher. We have the real Machine Gun Preacher, Sam Childers. But just remember Samuel Childers. You can go onto that Facebook site and you can see the updates. When you see the updates on South Sudan on that project, I want you to remember this. It all started with a mosquito net hanging in a tree. Every project we got, when you see the farm started with nothing but bush, probably 6 to 7 feet high bush. We bought the first tractor and we brought in a big brush hog, and a big brush hog, we had to adjust it almost 18 inches, 20 inches in the air. And we mowed this down, and now you got 500 acres that's being farmed, because we got 1,200, but we keep half of it for our cows, our goats, our sheep, because you got to have grazing land. But I mean, it all started with visions and no money. So don't wait on the money. Step out, take your resources. God will step up for sure.
Sam, before we get into some specifics, is there anything, you're doing so much.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover before we get?
I think the big thing is the new documentary, Never Stop. This documentary, and now I say it's focused on us older people, okay? Because I'm in the 60s club. But for you people out there in the 70s club, you people that's in the 80s club, see, I want to tell you a little something about me. You might say, well, I'm old, I'm walking with a cane. I want you to listen to this. Don't be offended. I don't care if you're walking with a cane. I don't care if you're walking with a walker. I don't care if you're sitting in a wheelchair. God is not finished with you. So don't be finished with God. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. You can still do kingdom work. So never stop. And I believe that this new documentary, right now, you can go to MGP Never Stop. MGP Never Stop. You can download this documentary. At the end of this documentary, it's not going to be about what Sam Childers accomplished in 26 years. It's about what you are beginning and what you can accomplish with Jesus Christ, no matter what your age is. I don't care if you're just a young teenage kid. God can do big things. And I believe by watching this documentary, Never Stop, God's going to change your life.
It's amazing. And you got great merch.
Yeah.
Christmas time is here, folks. For those who celebrate it, I call it witness wear, but it's great stuff, man. I mean, cups and glasses and hoodies and caps and challenge coins. I mean,
you have a lot.
It starts
of
a
people,
conversation.
You have a lot of people. They say to me, "Well, Sam, what you're selling all this merchandise, and why are you selling it all?" Because I believe when you hold that coffee cup, I believe when you hold that cup of iced tea, I believe that when you wear that shirt, you remember a nobody did it. So people out there that's listening, you might be thinking you're a nobody. You are a somebody. But when you begin, get the attitude, I'm never going to stop. So I don't want people to admire Sam Childers. I want you to remember who he was and what Jesus Christ done. So that's what the merchandise is for. That's what the documentary is for. That's what my books, my first book, Another Man's War, the second book, Living on the Edge, the third book that's coming out, hopefully by Christmas, The Most Unlikely. When you open the book, the full title is inside, The Most Unlikely Never to Succeed in Life, Sam Childers. So if God can use me, just imagine what he can do with you.
Brother, you're a living testament to that. You really are. And I love who you are.
Yeah.
You're the same guy everyone can put on a TV face, but when you're the same person on stage as off stage, on camera or off camera, people can trust that.
I'm the oldest American, and when you start getting on YouTube, if you like to look back over the past 20 plus years, 25 plus years, go to YouTube. You can see stuff on Machine Gun Preacher, Sam Childers. You can see me in the battlefield rescuing children. I mean, raw footage, not cut, of me in the battlefield. It's on YouTube. But the biggest thing is, I'm 63 years old, and I'm still out there. I still suit up, still put a uniform on, strap the iron on, and go into the battlefield. I'm still doing the same thing I did 29 years ago, rescuing children. So like I tell people, there's a lot of good ministries out there. Maybe you are supporting a good ministry. Maybe you're supporting a missionary. Listen, if you're supporting the real deal, please don't stop supporting them. But I challenge you, look into our work. If you would like to call our office, you'll speak to the CEO, Evelina. Evelina and her husband, Pastor Michael, are going to be taking over the organization one day. For me, when I was about 50, I had in my head that I don't want this organization to fall and die because I got killed. So when I was about 50, I started searching and forming this organization for the past 10 years, mentoring husband and wife, that if something happens to me, it still goes on. So you got to remember, if you want to support an organization that rescues children of war where no one else wants to go, educates children, gives them a safe place to live, teaches them a skill and a trade, gives them opportunity for trade school and university, gives them opportunity to work as a job and get a skill and a trade, and they're still rescuing children, and there's young couples to take over when the older ones are gone, you want to support Angels of East Africa.
Sam, I've seen great men come and speak to people that I love. And you've been very gracious to do that. One thing I heard you said that I've never heard is, hey, ask any question you want. There's not a question you can't ask about my life, about the ministry, about details, because if someone gets upset at the question, it's a red flag.
Yeah.
A lot of you know what it's like. There's just questions you can't ask. You can't talk to the person. But in this case, I love that. Another thing I love about you, Sam, is you're very open with your
I believe when I travel around the world, and like I told you here earlier, I'm not here to sightsee. I love Texas. I'll see Texas as I'm driving through, I'm not here to sightsee. I'm here to raise money for the cause. And so that's what I stay focused on. But I believe if I'm coming to your town, if I'm coming to your state and I'm asking you to support our work, you should be allowed to ask me any question you would like. So I know we're running out of time, but I want to tell you now, down below, I'm going to get them to put down our number so you can call the office. You can speak directly to Evelina. Evelina goes to Africa 4 or 5 times a year. Not just Evelina, her husband, her son, my grandson, which is 4 years old. So, you can speak directly and you ask us any question at all. And the big thing, ask us anything about money. We will answer any question you want to ask.
This is the year to step out, folks.
And you can put boots on the ground. You know, with our organization, you're not only going to hear it from us, they do about 4 trips, 5 trips per year where you can put boots on the ground.
I'm looking forward to coming to you live from the field, from the battlefield.
Praise God.
Well, folks, this is the time to step out. Get involved in your town, your sphere of influence, and support the work of helping widows and orphans, changing bloodlines, ministering to people in the Sudan in ways you've never dreamed before. Go to machinegunpreacher.org. Also, the other site for the Never Stop documentary.
MGP Never Stop.
MGP Never Stop. Step out today. Make this the year that you begin to step out, because when you dare to step out into the unknown, one of 2 things will happen. You'll either land on something solid or God will teach you how to fly. It's been a great Light of the Southwest. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Sam.
Praise God.